After the kind of debacle of my curtain project, I was craving something eminently achievable and hopefully not too complicated, so I delved into the depths of my sewing cupboard and pulled out this tablecloth that I bought eons ago and dyed not that long ago. The idea for this project is literally the first thing that I drew in my current notebook, which has been going for a couple of years at least. And the concept is to do a little top using the lace details and the edging of this tablecloth as a bit of a feature. I spent some time on Pinterest scrolling for a couple of different ideas because I changed my mind a little bit since those first sketches that I did, and I decided to draw up a fresh idea. The tablecloth has this cute bow edging, and so I decided I wanted that to be front and center and let it do all the work, so the shape is going to be very simple for this top. I also wanted to avoid putting in a zipper or anything, so I decided to make the back overlap slightly, also so that I could use more of the edge detail, and especially because the corners were really cute. I looked up the Crissa crop pattern that was referenced as a free pattern on the Pinterest link for some inspiration. I don't have a printer at home and I wanted to get started right away, so I used the basic concept and then tried to hack together something from the patterns that I already do have. Unfortunately, the only top pattern that I have in my stash that's even remotely close to the style I need is one that has a waist dart rather than a bust dart or armhole dart, which is more of what I was after. My vintage sleeve pattern has a bodice block, but it has 2 bust darts, which I just didn't know how to deal with, so I realised I was going to have to do some dart manipulation, which I've only seen done in very neat looking Instagram reels by people with actual pattern making experience, so I wasn't hopeful, but I decided to give it a try anyway. I looked up some tutorials and I had a bit of a go, but I won't give any sort of detailed information about what I did for my process here because I'm still not sure I achieved what I wanted to. But maybe one day I'll do an actual pattern making course and then I'll learn how to do these things properly. There was a lot of tracing and cutting and fiddling and more tracing and fiddling, and eventually I had some makeshift pattern pieces to get started with on the cutting. Having made the pattern that I was tracing from a couple of times many years ago, I knew that the neckline was going to be very high and very round, and I wanted it to be less round with the shoulder part kind of thinner. So the only major adjustment I made after moving the dart around was to the neckline and the armholes. And I found my all-in-one curve ruler thingamajig very handy for this process, so I recommend getting one of these if this is the kind of adjustment that you think you might want to play with for your own projects. Mine was extremely affordable and makes a difference, so I'll see if I can find a similar one and I'll make sure it's linked below. As with the front, I did the same process for the back to adjust the dart placement. This was a little bit more challenging because there was also a shoulder dart, so I took some time trying to figure that out, but eventually we got there. I also added some width to the back neckline to get enough of an overlap, but I didn't worry about seam allowance because I knew I would use the already finished edge of the tablecloth. And then I made the same adjustment on the neckline, on the back sort of pattern piece, and also to the armholes to narrow the shoulder a little to match the changes that I did on the front. And then once I had all my pattern pieces, all 2 of them, I packed up all the other bits and pieces and I finally got around to cutting this thing out. Now a bit of background on this tablecloth. It's something I bought almost 3 years ago from Vinnie's for another project, but I didn't end up using it. It started out this kind of off-white colour and it sat in the cupboard for a very long time. I did use it once as an actual tablecloth for a dinner party for my birthday earlier this year. Anyway, I decided to dye it, but that process kept getting shafted down the to-do list until recently when we were up at the farm, so I decided to give out dyeing a go, and obviously I've done some more dyeing since and I'm kind of hooked, so stay tuned. I will definitely share more of this process in another video coming up soon because there's a lot to get through on this one. So I dyed it. It happened. Rather annoyingly, this tablecloth isn't square, so I chose to use the short side for this project, basically to save fabric. Not sure why, but she's frugal in many ways, including with fabric. I always get a little bit nervous making that first cut for any project, but I really wanted to make this, so I just went ahead and threw caution to the wind. faffed around with the back piece for quite a while, trying to figure out a good placement for where I wanted this edge part to go. I got there eventually and I finally cut it out, and then I basically just followed typical sort of top construction from here on out. And if you don't know how that goes, with most projects you start with the darts, so I started with the darts. And I honestly think I made the armhole darts a little bit too extreme, but you'll see that kind of soon enough, I guess, at the end. A tip for sewing darts that I've shared before, but I'm going to share again, is to start at the tip of the dart, kind of off the fabric, and then work to the raw edge without backstitching at the start, but definitely backstitch at the end. And then once you've sewn it, you just tie off the threads at the point to secure the stitching. I usually do 2 or 3 knots, depending on how patient I'm feeling. You know me well enough though, and you know that I am impatient, so I cracked on with the shoulder seams, which I sewed with a French seam, mostly because I was too impatient, again, to get out my overlocker, but also because they're just very extremely satisfying to sew. They're super simple to do. I've run through it on a couple of other videos. There's lots of videos on YouTube if you don't know how to do a French seam. They're really great to enclose a raw edge. You don't need any other kind of machine. You just need a normal sewing machine, and they are great. Usually I would press the bulk of the shoulder seam to the back, but this bulk just really wanted to go to the front and I didn't want to fight it. So I pressed it in the end towards the front, and I think it just sat really nicely in the end. Okay, so I just got home from work. It's Tuesday. I don't know why I always tell you guys the day of the week, but it's Tuesday. I just got home from work. It's pretty early still, all things considered, and I've been making progress on this top. I have so far done the darts and I've attached it at the shoulders with a French seam. I'm going to put binding on the armholes and the neckline before I do the side seams, and then it's basically finished. Then I just need to add some sort of fastening at the top here along the back, and then it's done. But what I've been doing is making my own bias because I don't have any of this color obviously, and the other night I was trying to do it. I was trying to be all fancy and I accidentally talked myself out of the correct way of doing it. So I started off doing it one way, and then I thought that that was wrong, and it turned out that that way was right, and I didn't realize until I was already cutting through the thing, and so I had to go back and make more. But it's basically just some, I guess you'd call it 1/2 inch binding. I'm never really super confident with binding stuff because it never turns out very well, so I'm going to try and concentrate on doing that. But so far so good on this top. So far so good. I'm probably going to finish it in the next half hour and I'll show you guys how it goes. Okay, let's continue. Oh, I tried to do a fun method with the binding, but it didn't really work in order to fold it and make it look all cute. Didn't really work, but yeah. Oh well. I might need to plug you in for a minute, you're low on battery, so BRB. Obviously, I put the battery on to charge and then I started scrolling, but now I'm ready to do a little bit of sewing. So let's do a little bit of sewing and then I'm gonna have dinner. I wanted to show you this method that I tried for how to make bias tape. I saw this on the internet. Okay, before you all start yelling at me in the comments that you can get little devices to help you, I do have one of those thingies, but it's not the right size. This is one for 1 inch bias binding, and you like thread it in and pull it through. I haven't used it yet because I finished the project that was using that. I finished the project that needed one of these before I even got one of these, which was my quilted jacket. I'm actually making bias tape that's half the size of this, and I don't have another one of these, and I don't really want to go to the shop and buy one because I saw this method on the internet. Basically, you get your bit of bias, you plug the iron in first. First, make sure your iron is on. I did not do that, so don't follow my advice. But I think basically, what you do is, And I feel like my mum has showed me this before because my mum is the font of all sewing knowledge. Well, she's the font of some sewing knowledge. She's the font of my foundational sewing knowledge. But I think what you do is you kind of put pins in your ironing board and then you fold over this however you want it to be, or at least you start it off by folding it and pressing it, and then you pull through these pins that are in the ironing board. I'll give you a better look and I'll show you kind of that it works for a little bit, but not for the whole length. So yeah, let me show you what I mean. When I'm scrolling, I try and be productive, and that involves saving different reels that I see, with particular attention to sewing hacks, although seems I have not managed to actually save this one that I saw. Well, I don't know. I think that you put... Let me show you. I think you put kind of one pin in the board, in the ironing board like that, and then get started on the start of the tape. Kind of. You lock that in to the ironing board, so it's kind of coming along. But then what you need to do is add a second one, apparently. So then you add another pin and you lock that in there. And when I saw this video, they pulled it through and it worked. But it's obviously not going to work for me right now when I'm trying to show you. And then you just go like that. Which is great until you get to a join, and then it doesn't want to behave because it's kind of a bit too chunky. But wow, this is actually pretty quick. But hey, if you don't have one of these doodaddies in the right size, I reckon this method is worth a go. And also, if you have a tip for this method, I'd be more than willing to hear it. So yeah, don't tell me to get another size of that. If you have something helpful to say about this, please share. If not, yes, I have it on my shopping list to get the smaller size one of those, especially if I'm going to be making more bias tape, which, you know, is kind of satisfying. So as I said I would do, I did the binding on the neckline and on the armholes, which was just the basic method of attaching on one side and then pressing and folding and top stitching to finish off the edge. But I didn't have the right coloured thread to finish the top stitching, and so the next day I took my little scrap of binding to Draper's Fabrics and I found a pretty good match on the thread to finish off the top stitching. I have to say though that the thread I got is not the best quality, and it was kind of grippy and it didn't run very smoothly through my machine. So in future I will definitely try to get Gundungurra thread, because we all know that that's the best thread. I was really hoping that this project would take me like an afternoon, but it ended up taking me quite a while just because I kept losing motivation. But I'm glad that I finished it now. I just need to tidy up the chalk marks and actually wear it somewhere because it's great. To finish it off, I found a little small pearlescent button in my stash and some snaps that I inherited from my nana, and a little bit of cord that I hoarded from something, and then I added another snap as well midway down the crossover because I realized that some of the peepholes on the front would risk a kind of like wardrobe malfunction moment, so I'm going to need to wear a bra with this top, and I didn't really want the bra strap to be showing in the back. Overall, I'm really happy with it, and gee, it was really nice to be sewing with some cotton again, not that slippery stuff that I used to make my curtain. I have an awkward amount of fabric left over because I used up a lot of this solid portion remaking the bias tape that I stuffed up the first time. And the armhole darts are maybe a little too long, but I think for a casual top that I'll wear around this summer, I'm pretty happy. Let me know what you think of this top, and also if you don't mind this sort of voiceover style video. I'd love to get some videos out more regularly, but my schedule is kind of jammed these days now that I'm working full time again, and sometimes doing a voiceover is just a little bit easier for my brain to manage. So please let me know, and regardless, I'll see you very, very, very soon.